Since President Obama took office, one state has taken the lead in pushing back against what critics call a massive abuse of executive power, and that's Texas. From issues like Obamacare and immigration to voter ID and transgender policy directives for schools, the legal battles have been many. Now there could be another one brewing over the state's decision to withdraw from the Fed's refugee program. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has been on the front lines and joins us now live from Austin. Governor, thanks for giving us some of your time today.
My pleasure, Shannon. Thank you.
All right, I know you have serious concerns about the refugee program. It's not that you don't want to help people, but the feds need to help you at the same time. What are your worries?
Well, first, Shannon, Texas has helped in the refugee program more than any other state. The problem comes from the federal government itself. Remember this. The Department of Homeland Security just recently said in a revealed document that refugee fraud is easy to commit, but hard to detect. The Secretary of State said that ISIS sometimes infiltrate the refugee system. Remember, the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, all said they are incapable of vetting refugees from Syria. And Shannon, we've experienced this here in the state of Texas. It was earlier this year when a refugee from Iraq was arrested by the FBI because of his plot to blow up a mall. You know, the federal government doesn't have either the capacity or the will to keep Americans safe in the refugee system. Texas will not be an accomplice to this dereliction of duty to the United States of America.
And my understanding is that you asked repeatedly of those agencies for those assurances and information and guidelines so that you could be sure the people that you would take in and those you do want to help would be properly vetted. What response did you get?
Well, you're exactly right, Shannon. We repeatedly, during the course of this year, asked for more information from federal authorities so that we could participate in ensuring that we were keeping our fellow Texans safe, that we wouldn't have another incident like what happened in Houston, Texas with this Iraqi refugee. And they told us no at every turn. They would not share the information with us. They would not help us in any way to ensure that we would be able to protect Texans.
All right. You also have an issue with budgetary concerns as well, because taking care of people costs money. There are a lot of costs associated with resettlement. My understanding is you were worried that you'd get sent more people than you could afford to help.
Right. Well, the way this is supposed to work is there is actually a contract and a deal between the states and the federal government, as well as these immigration resettlement agencies, where we're supposed to have some say in the process. There was a limit of the number of people they were going to be relocating to the state of Texas. Well, both the federal government and the relocation agency said, sorry, Texas, you have no role here, no say here whatsoever. You have to take whatever we are going to dictate to you. We said, listen, we're not going to be a pawn in your scheme here. If this is a one-way street that we don't get to have a partnership in, we don't get to participate in any way whatsoever, we're out.
Okay, while we have you, and because it's election season, I want to ask you as well about the issue of voter ID. There's obviously a law in play here. There are questions about fraud. And when I tweeted out today that you were going to come on and possibly talk about this, one of the first tweets I got back was, it's a GOP myth. They're not voter ID fraud cases out there. I know as Attorney General of Texas, you may have had a different experience.
Well, first, before I was governor, I was the Attorney General, and I prosecuted voter fraud across the state of Texas. But Shannon, the problem has grown more complicated. Look at the story that came out, I think it was last week, where you had a lot of dead people registered to vote in Virginia. It's not just Virginia where that happens. It turned out the study I saw showed that this was a scheme where people on a college campus registered these dead people to vote. Also, as you probably noted, it was last week where the FBI indicated that there was at least one, maybe more than one state whose system had been hijacked by these internet hackers. They now have access to data about voters in certain states where voter fraud could be perpetuated. Voter ID is one way to protect against that danger.
Well, and there are several states whose laws have been challenged. There are other challenges now pending and headed for the Supreme Court. So we'll keep an eye on it, and you keep us updated, Governor. Good to see you.
Thank you, Shannon.